Hey guys, welcome back to Pin Pals, the podcast about enamel pins and the makers behind them. Whether you're listening or watching the podcast, thanks for tuning in. Today we jump into the world of wooden pins with my friend Shay, aka Shea-zor's Lazor. We talk about his wooden pins and how the process of making wooden pins differs from enamel pins. We also talk about the pros and cons of selling pins on Etsy, our mutual love for Ninja Toitles, and end with some fun pin-related rapid fire. We also discuss the importance of having a niche, so if you're the type of person who likes to take notes, get your notepads ready. Without further ado, here's my pinversation with my pin pal, Shea-zor's Lazor. Welcome to Pin Pal, Shay. How's it going?
It's going. How are you?
Doing great. Just hanging in there, taking it day by day. I can't believe we're a year into this pandemic. It feels like it just started yesterday. But
You know what's oddly funny about this is that I started doing what I'm doing about a week before the pandemic hit. That's how I can track about where I'm at.
Okay. It must have been pretty crazy. Pretty crazy for you to start off a business and then have it just the world kind of turn upside down.
It was interesting because I had gone through the whole process of just getting started by buying all my equipment. You know, I got my cutter, I got everything ready, and then I had spent a ton of money, and then it was like lockdown. You got to stay home from work, you know. Then I was wondering if I was going to get a paycheck or not. And that's when like all the unemployment and everything started. So there's a little bit of uncertainty there, but I'm glad that I did it when I did it, you know, and here we are today about a year later. So
There you go. I mean, if anything, one of the first lessons that you were kind of forced to learn is how to adapt your business when things change. So it's awesome to see that you're still here a year later, adapting and overcoming,
right.
which is really great. Cool. So before we start getting into the nitty and gritty stuff, let's have you introduce yourself to the listeners. What's your deal? What's your spiel? What's your elevator pitch?
My name's Shay, and my company, which I recently just legitimized, is called Shea-zor's Lazor, and it's a laser cutting, laser engraving. I make pins, keychains, magnets, personalized items, pretty much anything that I can fit in my laser and is doable. I can figure out some sort of way to try to help people figure out what they want. In addition to that, I've also started doing enamel pins. I've always been really intrigued by enamel pins, and I started a collection, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago with just buying some Ninja Turtle pins because, you know, Ninja Turtles are my jam along with Pokemon. So, you know, I think my first set of pins was from, I forgot who it was, but you know, I just bought all 4 of them, liked it, and from there it just kind of escalated to kind of an obsession. And I think all pin creators / collectors understand that obsession when it comes to, oh, you see this awesome pin, I got to have it for my collection. And then before you know it, you have too many pins for your board.
Yeah.
But I wanted to jump in on the enamel pins, but every time I would research it basically was very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to do it. And it wasn't until I reached out to Anthony at Express Yourself. He helped me really get started on this and gave me some pointers. And so in addition to all the laser cutting that I do, I'm also just kind of dipping my foot into the enamel pin world.
That's awesome. Let's bring it back a little bit. Do you have any early pin memories, or did it really just kind of start like 2 years ago when you saw some cool Ninja Turtle pins?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people would agree with me that Disneyland is probably where a lot of people start realizing like the obsession with pins, because you got to get your lanyard, you know, then you got to fill it up with pins. And then from there, it's just kind of like, well, now I got to get a second lanyard because, you know, this trip to Disneyland, I want to wear these pins. And then maybe the next time I want to wear these pins. And it kind of blew up from there. And whenever I have friends go to Disneyland, I'm like, hey, just pick out a pin that you think that I would like and bring it back to me. And so my whole collection pretty much started with Disney pins. And then from there, it was like Ninja Turtle pins and Pokemon pins. And it's like, oh, this random pin, that's awesome. And just that's where it all came from.
That's awesome. I think everyone on the podcast has those Disney pin beginnings, and
Hmm.
that's great. We all start from a common thread, Disney pins.
You know, it's
It's
funny
huge.
too is on my Disney lanyard, I have a Ninja Turtle pin that's hiding in there just to see if people notice it, and they do.
Yeah, and you just need like a little heads up or oh sweet.
Hmm.
They
They're
don't
just
need
like,
to say
what? Do you
much for you
notice
to.
anything's different on this? And they're like, oh yeah, look, it's Leonardo.
That's really cool. How did collecting the pins kind of turn into making pins, wooden and enamel?
Well, um, starting collecting the enamel pins, like I said, it got me interested in creating the enamel pins. But when I realized just how kind of expensive it really was, I was trying to think maybe maybe it's not for me, maybe I can't do it, and I had a lot of doubt. But a friend of mine bought a laser cutter, and once I started seeing what he was doing with it, it got me really intrigued. And I saw a lot of the things that he was making and creating, and I was like, hey, I could do this. It's not that, there's an initial cost, but it's not
Hmm.
that expensive overall. I can make what I want. And I thought my initial thought was it'd be really easy to promote myself because I play a lot of Pokemon Go, and I could just make a bunch of Pokemon pins and hand them out to people during like events. It's just like a really cool business card. That way that I can showcase what I make, throw a little
Hmm.
card with my info on there, and just give them out. And that's kind of where I started with it, and it just kind of exploded from there. And now I'm just making what I make. Anything that I think that's fun and exciting, or things that appeal to me, I make, and then I throw them up on my Etsy, and that's it. Just kind of fingers crossed that people will buy it.
Yeah, and you're doing a great job. I think I actually had one of your wooden pins. I think it's the Ninja Turtle logo on the sewer plate.
Yeah, so
I
you must have gotten that from, I think his name was
Spidey.
Spidey. Yeah. He
Yeah, my buddy
ordered, I
Joe.
think, 10 or 15 of them from me. And
Mm-hmm.
then I think he gave them out. And what's funny that you mention him, because he had told me, and I might be getting my information here a little weird, but he said that Vanilla Ice has like a yearly convention, and he wanted to give some of my pin, like that sewer lid, to Vanilla Ice. And I was like, holy crap, if
Mm-hmm.
you're really going to meet him, like, and I sent him a set of the wooden pins. I said, please, please, please give these to him. And because of COVID, he didn't have any tours this year. So,
Oh man.
you know, shot my hopes up there for him getting some of my pins this year.
Don't consider it a lost cause, my friend. Joe is a really good friend of mine. We go back to when I first started Warrior Pins, and he delivered
Oh yeah.
multiple times with a picture of Vanilla Ice and some of our pins.
I have
Um,
I have seen your pictures of that.
s- so as soon as the world gets back to normal, I'm sure you're gonna get hooked up with some awesome pictures. So I got my fingers crossed that it'll happen for you eventually. Joe's a
Yeah,
great
that
dude.
I would be really excited if that happens.
That's really cool. So tell me, I wanna ask you a couple questions about this laser cutter. Forgive my ignorance, but I don't really have any experience with the laser cutter. Is this a machine that can also kind of cut into other materials besides wood, or is this just kind of only laser etchings into wood? Maybe if you can kind of explain that to listeners.
So the cutter that I have, it's in layman's terms, it's called a Chinese K40, which means that it's about a 40 watt, and it's not that powerful to cut through really anything other than 3 millimeter birch wood and some acrylic. I can laser etch on things like metal, or like tile, like those plate coasters. You
Mhm.
can kind of do that kind of stuff, but it's not really powerful enough to cut through any of that. So wood, yes. Acrylic, yes. Everything else, it just will etch. But my cutter specifically is relatively small. It's only about 30 inches long by maybe about 20 inches deep. So it only can hold It can hold a 12 by 12 board, but that's too big to cut on it fully. So I have mine cut down to 10 by 10s, and that's pretty much what I'm restricted to. I did boost it up a little bit. I gave it a new motherboard so that I can control the power a little bit.
You can actually go in there and remove and like kind of upgrade it like a PC.
Yeah, it's highly recommended because the way it comes stock, you can't really control the power output and things like that. So I've updated it with a new motherboard, little gadgets here and there, and then the program that I run is called Lightburn, and from there I can go in and modify the files. I can add like borders around it. I can add all the holes and everything for keychains, but more importantly, I can tell it how powerful and how fast to run the laser. So if I run it a little bit faster, then I want to turn the power up because it's going to go back and forth a lot faster and it's not going to give it enough time for the laser to hit the wood. So there's a lot of little intricacies that you really have to learn in order to kind of nail it down. I certainly have a style. I like to run my stuff a little bit darker and deeper, whereas opposed to my friend, he likes to do a little bit of lighter and, you know, things like that. So it took a lot to learn initially, but it's been an interesting journey to figure out how to run the laser in a way in which that I like.
That's really cool. And I should have shown these earlier when we first started, but I have some of your pins right here. And by the time this episode is out, there'll probably be posts with better close-up pictures of all these pins. But I mean, the details are great. I love the contrast. They came out really smooth, I'm honestly surprised at the amount of detail that you're able to get on something like this.
Yeah, it actually kind of baffles me just how precise the laser can be, because if you look at that pin, even down like by his tail, that's just a teeny tiny little piece, and yet the laser does it like it's nothing, just like a printer. It's really interesting.
That's awesome. One thing that did come to my head was, because the details can be kind of small, do you ever like find yourself like, is the laser like too strong and like maybe the katanas will like, I don't know, cut off or something like that? Is there any kind of like margin of error with something like this? Or you pretty much getting...
So yeah, actually, I did a set of, I don't know how familiar you are with like World of Warcraft, but
not too much, but
in the game there's different races and different classes. Well, I made a bunch of keychains according to whether you want like an orc or a warrior or whatever. And the images that I had were so detailed that when I did what's called a fill, so if you take a look at the pin again, just like look at his katana, for example, I can set that to a fill or I can set it to a line. And if it's a line, it'll just go through and make just single lines. But if I do a fill, it'll fill in all that dark area that you see. That's called a fill.
Okay.
So what I did was I tested it out with a fill, and because there was so much detail, it was basically burning too much of the wood that it wasn't coming out clear. So I flipped it around and just did a line, and then it ended up being a lot cleaner. So there's just little things like that where you have to kind of judge whether or not one is better than the other.
Right.
The other thing too is you can do an image file, which would burn. Here, I got this guy right here. So this is the original Ninja Turtle comic book cover.
Oh, so cool.
So that is an image file. So you can see how it burns basically like a black and white image. And then that's a magnet that I have. And then like this one, I just did a baby Groot. This is a vector file. It's a vector.
Okay.
So you can the vectors are a little bit easier to play with because they're a lot cleaner and they have harder lines, and they come out much cleaner than an image file. Like you saw that image of the Ninja Turtle comic, it was a little fuzzy, you know, and it really depends on the quality of your original image, but it can be done. And I think I sent you one of these, but that's also an image file.
And it came
So
out great. I
yeah,
was in
and it looks
awe.
awesome. It looks just like a newspaper article. So
Yeah, it had to go right up on my fridge.
yeah,
Had
so
to.
there's lots of little tiny things here and there that you just kind of learn over time, but it all
Mhm.
takes practice. It all takes, trial and error. And if one thing doesn't work, try something different.
For sure. I love that. And, that's also good advice for pins and, trying to sell them. And if it doesn't work, try something else. And it's just
Right.
trial and error. That's how you learn and get better and develop kind of like your own craft and your own system. So that's very cool. Thank you for sharing that insight. If I can ask you, what do you think are kind of like the advantages with wooden pins versus enamel pins?
Well, the main advantage is that I have control.
Hmm.
I can make one, I can make 20. And if it doesn't work, then I can figure out how to make it work without it costing me a lot of money.
Right.
Whereas enamel pins, it's like once you have your design and you send it off to your manufacturer, it's just kind of a fingers crossed and hope that they get it the way that you want it.
Hmm.
It's not to pivot, but when I did my first set of those wooden pins, the Ninja Turtles as enamel, I was so meticulously picky, and I felt kind of bad for the manufacturer because I would not let them go to print until it was 100% what I wanted it to be, which is how it should be.
Absolutely.
But they were fantastic, and they helped me out a lot. So when it comes to the wooden versus the enamel, I think it mostly is the level of control that I have, because I don't have to spend a ton of money to hope that they come out correctly when I can just make it work how I need it to work.
I love that. That's awesome. Having that flexibility is huge, and you don't need like a lot of money up front to produce product.
Right.
And that's also huge. You can use that extra cash, time, and resource to make more, just experiment doing other stuff. But it's awesome that you're not tied down to a mold, because I've been there and I know other pin makers who have been there where they get the mold and something's messed up and you're stuck with that
Yeah.
unless you want to dish out another 150 bucks for like a new mold.
And that was one of the things that Anthony really stressed to me, was he said, be very, very specific about your sizes with enamel pins, because when you say 1.5 inches, they're going to take 1.5 inches from its longest point. And that's where he kind of got messed up with one of his, or I think it was 2 of his pins, where they came out smaller because like Leonardo's katanas went above the head. And that's, if you look at my pins, my Leonardo is actually taller than the others. So I had to stress to the manufacturer that I needed his pin just to be a little bit larger than the others. Otherwise, his body would be slightly smaller than the rest. So I was really, really particular about that.
Hard to see here. I'll get some pictures later and post those on our Instagram, but I see that, and I've run into that issue in the past. As always with Leonardo too, because of the swords, just kind of throws it off a little bit.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I can definitely see the advantages, and it just looks cool. And this isn't something that you see every day. So
Right.
the fact that it really stands out just kind of puts you a little ahead of some of the other competition. Just kind of makes you stand out a little bit more.
Well, the other advantage too, I think, is for the consumer, is that they're not as expensive as enamel pins. Enamel pins definitely have a cost to them, and you have to turn that around in order to make some sort of a profit, that the consumer has to pay a little bit more for a metal pin versus something that's wooden. It doesn't cost as much. So you can have the same cool design in a really unique style for a fraction of the cost.
You nailed it. Yeah. Everyone wins, it sounds like. That's really great. Can you tell me any kind of challenges you've faced when trying to produce and sell wooden pins or even enamel pins, just in general? I'm just looking to see if there are any other pin makers that can relate to some of your challenges or some of your struggles, and maybe how you've overcome anything like that.
Well, wood is such a unique market that I don't think very many people know about. Even I didn't really know about it until just about a year ago, when my coworker was like, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and I started looking into it more, I knew that there were laser cutters and I knew that those things existed, but I never thought much about it. And then once I got into the world, like there's groups on Facebook about it, and they all kind of help each other figure things out. It's interesting. I think the hardest part for me getting started was when I actually purchased my initial machine, it didn't work.
Oh.
And I had it for about a month, and my friend and I just racked our brains left and right trying to figure out why it wasn't working. And I eventually ended up sending it back because it had a 30-day return policy. And on the 29th day, I emailed them and said, this is going back because I can't figure out what's wrong with it. And they're like, well, we'll send you a YouTube video. And I'm like, no, I want the machine to work and I don't want to deal with it. So I ended up packing it back up, shipping it back. And then I sat for a couple of weeks just going like, if this is how it's going to be, I don't even know if I want to try this. But then my buddy ended up selling me his laser because he got a better one. And I'm using this guy, a year later, and it's just worked out great. But I think that was the hardest thing for me, was just like the anxiety of, hey, I want to do this thing, but it's not working. Like immediately it's not working. And I was like, is this going to be how it's going to be? Yeah. And I kind of had to put that fear away and figure it out. And that's where we're at now. So yeah, I mean, that was the hardest part. But everything from there, the next hardest thing I think would be just like figuring out how to get the burns the way you want them to be a bit,
I can see that. Yeah. You mentioned before the one line or multiple lines, the outlines and the edges and stuff like that are a little bit thicker than the inside. Wow. A lot of patience, it sounds like.
Yeah. It definitely is some trial and error. But now that, once you practice with it and get it, you kind of, when you have a new design, you kind of go into it knowing what you might do to make it work. Yeah. So I'm kind of at that point where when I see a design, I'm like, oh, well, this design's not really going to work. Do you have, I have some people who are like, oh, make me pins or keychains of my logo. And then they send me a logo and I'm like, it's not going to work. Like the way that your logo is designed, it just doesn't really work. So either I'll do some editing for them to try to get it to work or make them give me a new file.
Sure. Yeah. The same thing with making pins too. When people send you stuff that has like gradients and super fine details, it's like, let me redirect you to this like 101 pin page to kind of just read through this and then resubmit your design.
What's funny is, like I said earlier with my enamel pins, I think I went a little too crazy for my first set of pins with just how detailed they really were, that looking back, I was like, man, maybe I should have tried something a little bit easier. But I'm really glad that I went all in on my first set because, in my opinion, I'm absolutely in love with those pins and how they came out.
That's awesome. Very rarely will people will be proud of like their first products. But a lot of the times people will be like, yeah, this was our first product and, we've gotten so much better at this and this and that. But it sounds like it's kind of like the opposite for you. You're really happy with all the time.
What was really funny is my day job professionally, I'm a graphic designer and a printer. Okay. So I don't know how familiar you are with RBG and CMYK.
I know the importance of them.
Yes. So I worked with an artist for the designs, and my initial designs were set up in RBG. Oh. So when I sent them off to the manufacturer and they sent me their proofs back, all of the colors were wrong because they were converted over to CMYK, which is used for printing and ink, versus RBG, which is used for light. So the differences for those who don't know is RBG is used for designing on screens, like phones or web pages, things like that. But CMYK is used for printing or any kind of physical object. And the two colors may look similar on screen, but they will not be produced in their respective medium correctly. So when I submitted my files as a RGB and not knowing it, they came back as CMYK and they were completely wrong. So I had to spend I don't know. I think I spent like 3 hours picking out Pantone colors to just like get the colors back to where I wanted them to be.
Hmm.
And that was a nightmare. I learned from that one.
Yeah, I've made the same mistake in getting the proofs back, and I'm like, what happened here? And
Yeah, it's
I
like
had
that's
to
not the
school
right grain.
myself. Yeah, exactly. But I kind of have like a little background in graphic design, but it's not a day job for me or
Hmm.
anything like that. I'm just kind of like learning what I need to know to get
Hmm.
by. So there was a
Right.
learning curve, while actually trying to produce the pins. So that's awesome that you kind of have like a leg up on that kind of information, and really the importance of
Mm,
it.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I went to school for graphic design, and then that's what I do every day now. So when they sent me that file back and I looked, I was like, no, it's not right. And I was like, oh no, RBG, why?
All right, so I know we kind of talked about this in the beginning of our call, but I'm curious to know if the pandemic has affected your business. You said you started a week before the pandemic hit. So I'm kind of curious to see how things have been trying to start a business and get the gears going during a pandemic.
So you know what I find interesting? There's a lot of really bizarre things that have happened during this pandemic that I never would have expected to turn out the way that they did. And a lot of that is like collectibles have skyrocketed in value and price during this time. And I don't know if that's because people are sitting at home collecting unemployment checks, or they're bored and they want something to spend their money on. And they're just like browsing the internet and trying to kickstart their nostalgia. But for me, it's always hard getting started. And I did like reach out to Anthony and said, like, when did you really take off? And he said it wasn't until he was able to fill up his Etsy with multiple items
Hmm.
that people had more of a variety did he take off. And I kind of took that to heart, and I just kind of went crazy with like coming up with every idea I could to throw up on my Etsy. And that's kind of when everything started picking up. And I think it's just because people, they just want things right now to make them happy, which is why
Yeah.
online shopping is like, that retail therapy, just going online and knowing that a package is on its way, it makes everybody happy.
Hmm.
Um, but honestly, I couldn't tell you. Um, I didn't seem to have any trouble getting
Okay.
started. Like there was always a sale here or a sale there. And then as time went on and I had more product up, then I was getting a couple sales here and a couple sales there. Um, but I get enough throughout the week that makes me feel pretty good.
That's great. That's amazing. I wish a lot of other people could say that. Um, so that's great. And yeah, retail therapy has been a huge thing in 2020. My Shopify stocks have gone through the roofs. They're insane.
Yeah.
It's cool. Last question before we move on. You've been at this for a little over a year. You're making stickers, you're making wooden pins, you're making enamel pins. What's one or two little pieces of advice you would give out to someone who is looking to get into making pins, whether it's wooden or enamel?
Don't doubt, because that's what I did. I would look at the prices and just be like, too expensive. I can't afford this, and like, I can't sell 100 pins. I don't need 100 pins. Like I just want a couple. Don't let those negative thoughts overwhelm you. If it's something that you really want to do, then find a way to do it, because being able to take what you love and put it out into the world so that other people can love it, it speaks volumes. Just stick with it. If you're unsure, talk to friends, talk to family, get advice from other people, and make it happen if you can make it happen.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Never doubt yourself. There's always going to be people just kind of saying, there's always going to be excuses.
Right.
It's so easy to get caught up in that stuff, but sometimes done is better than perfection. You don't
Right.
need,
And that's always something that I've it's hard to
It-
to live your life by, but a finished product is better than an unfinished product. So lately that's what I've been trying to do is when I think of something, I write it down, try to get it done, try to get it up on my Etsy. If I don't like it, then I don't like it. It's not going to go up on my Etsy, but at least I tried.
Mm-hmm. I love that. All right, so let's jump into marketing. I want to ask you, do you have any kind of marketing strategy or approach when it comes to trying to sell your pins?
Well, initially, I made a lot of new pin friends on Instagram, and Anthony was one of them. And then there were a few others that I just talked to on a daily just to get advice. And initially, it was, "Hey, do you mind sharing this for me?" And and then I wouldn't mind sharing something for them. And that's kind of how I started getting a little bit exposed. Um, Free giveaways, those really, really help. If you can afford to give a set away or a single pin away, just as a giveaway, it's a really great way to get the followers up and to get more exposure out there, especially if you want to do it like a joint giveaway. I've done a couple joint giveaways, and it's a great way to be exposed to the other Instagram's followers and them to yours as well. So it's just getting more eyes on it. And then somebody wins a really cool set of pins, So it's kind of a win-win for everyone. I did a joint giveaway with a Ninja Turtle page, Ninja Toitles, and overnight I had I think within an 8-hour period I gained like 120 followers.
Wow.
Just from that one giveaway because he has so many.
Yeah.
So it's a good way. That's a really good way. The other thing I do is occasionally I'll promote a post through Instagram. I pay, I think it's like $30 for like a week, and it just gets it out there. It's like, $30. It's kind of a lot, but at the same time, it's like, you're getting thousands of eyes on it.
Yes.
And even if you sell one or two things, then you've made your money back. So at least you're even. Those are the real ways that I was trying to get people's eyes onto my product.
I want to talk about the giveaways real quick. I know giveaways, and other people have mentioned this on other episodes. Giveaways are a big thing to try and grow your following organically and to get your product seen by tons of other people, sometimes tens of thousands of other people. How do you run your giveaways? What does that look like? Whether you're doing it by yourself or you're collabing with Ninja Toitles.
So when Ninja Toitles and I've been chatting with him for a while, and I think, we've become pretty good friends. And I just was like, "Hey, would you be interested in doing a giveaway?" And he was like, "Absolutely. Let's do this." He's like, "We can get your numbers up." And he was super great about helping me. And that was actually my first giveaway. And he actually took care of everything. He was like, "I'll make the post, you just share it, and we'll take care of it." So he did everything. I just kind of sat back and watched how he did it. And then a couple months later, right around Christmas, I think it was, I did another giveaway with Anthony from Express Yourself. And I managed that one because I wanted to do it. I wanted to get my fingers in it and figure out. So I made the post. I designed the post. I wrote up the listing. I gave it to Anthony. He posted it. And then I think we ran it for 5 days, I think it was. And basically it was just like, like his page or follow his page, follow mine, like the post. And I think it was like share the post with 3 friends or something like that. And then from there, we put it in a random generator and somebody won and we shipped them. Anthony shipped his, I shipped mine. And then the guy got them. And as soon as he got them, it was right before Christmas. So we promoted it as like, you get these 2 sets of pins, one for you and one for a loved one for Christmas, just a time for Christmas kind of a thing. And then it, they get them and then they post them. "Oh, I love these pins." So that's, that was the joint one. And then I wanted to do a free one. So recently, I just had all the artwork finished for a giant Pokemon project that I'm doing of all the original gym leaders and their main featured Pokemon. And it was, 8 gym leaders and 8 Pokemon. So it was 16 pins total. And I gave the entire set away for a giveaway.
Talk about
So
value.
that was, it was a big one for me to do. And the girl who won, she lives down in Florida, and she was over the moon. She's like, I never win anything. And I was like, well, congratulations, you have 16 pins coming to you. And all of the pins I have, all of their back cards are specifically designed for each gym leader. So they all will have a different backing. You know, as like the first gym leader is a rock type leader, and the second one's a water type. So I have them designed according to what type of Pokemon they specialize in.
I like that. It's the little things like that.
That's a little feature I really wanted to like stress. So I spent hours and hours and hours designing these backing cards and getting them ready, and they're ready. So I'm in the process of getting that project going, which is quite an undertaking, but it's in the works. I have the first set, Brock and Onyx, ready, and Misty and Starmie are in production currently.
That's awesome. And I wish you the best of luck with that release and making those pins.
Thanks.
And you also mentioned that you have experience in the past running paid campaigns, probably on Instagram. I think you can kind of do Instagram and Facebook in tandem. But I want to talk to you about kind of your social media strategy. You know, what platforms are you on? What seems to be working for you? You know, what are some types of posts that seem to do well for your account? Because a carousel for me might not, you know, it might work for you. It might not work, and vice versa. So I'm just curious to see, you know, what's that like for you?
So I have an Instagram, which is where I spend 90% of my time. And I also have a Facebook, which I don't like using. Facebook over the years has kind of I've been turned away from Facebook over the years for various reasons. But I do still occasionally post in pin forums on Facebook. There's a few that I post when I get new pins, and that's just, you know, it doesn't hurt to throw them up there and just be like, hey, you know, check these pins out that I just made.
Yeah.
You know, but then I get an influx of manufacturers messaging me, trying to get me to purchase, you know, to buy from them and things like that. And I have made a few sales off of Facebook, but the primary source that I use is Instagram. I think it's a little bit more user friendly. I think that there's more people in our demographic on Instagram.
Yeah.
That I think more people that would be interested in the product on Instagram, whereas Facebook seems to be a little bit of an older crowd. Not saying that they aren't, but I think that just Instagram is, for me, kind of more the area that has been working. So every once in a while, you know, I'll throw up the paid advertisement and just try to hope that draws some attention to my page and kind of just see what happens.
Are you getting, because I kind of geek out on that kind of stuff, and I've done it for other jobs, and I've run like paid ads in the past for Warrior pins. Do you get into like the nitty gritty of creating an audience, and you're like, okay, we're going to target Ninja Turtle fans, pop culture fans?
You know what's funny is no. Yes, the answer is no. I did that for one, and I got not one hit from it. And I don't know if I did something wrong, or it just didn't. The algorithm didn't figure out what it was I was looking for. But from that point on, I just was like automatic, because the automatic one, it kind of targets posts that you follow, posts that follow you. And when I look at my followers and who I follow, they're all generally Ninja Turtles, Pokemon, video games. And that's exactly the demographic I'm trying to target. So I just let Instagram take care of it.
Cool. Well, I mean, the algorithm is always kind of learning and updating as we speak, with every click, every like, every follow, every saved post. That's awesome that it's working for you, though.
Yeah, it works more times than others sometimes, but you know, it's just kind of a gamble you got to take.
It's hit or miss.
You got to be willing to risk it for the biscuit, I guess they would say.
100%. 100%. It's always changing. It can be hit or miss, but you should not let that discourage you. You should be playing like
Right.
the long term game, I think, when it comes to paid ads,
Hmm.
because it's super easy to get discouraged.
Yeah.
Um, Talk to me about the reason you decided to use Etsy as your e-commerce platform.
So I am too cheap to pay for a website, and I don't want to build it myself. But I have a few friends who also are on Etsy, and they're quite successful.
Mhm.
Um, they do have a lot of fees, but if it prevents me from having to put in a lot of extra work in my already very tight schedule, I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of the income that I would have made for it to be so automated.
Mhm.
Um, Etsy in the past years has grown a lot, and I think Etsy's kind of the go-to for handmade trinkets and whatnot,
Agreed. Mhm.
for crafts and things like that. So it's I know when I'm looking for something very specific, Etsy's the first place I go to. So and even more so, I know that the people on Etsy are just like you and I. They
Mhm.
are people just trying to make their craft and trying to make a little bit of money, and it always is going, not always, most of the time it's going to be someone like you and me who just is trying to get their stuff out there. And I would rather support someone like that than find it at like a Walmart. So
Oh, hands down. Anytime I can try and support artists or creators doing something different, kind of going
mhm,
against the grain, um, I'm the same way. I go to Etsy first, see what I can find there. Who can I support?
mhm. One year for Christmas for all my brothers and sisters, I bought pins for everyone from Etsy.
Nice.
So everybody got a cool pin, and then I designed like a really neat card, like Merry Christmas, blah blah, stuff like that. Put it
Oh,
on
that's
there for them.
nice. That's sweet. I wanted to do that, but then it just became too much. I'm like, what kind of pins do I get my parents? I've already gotten them like weird stuff. Like we come
Hmm.
from a Hispanic family, so we have like the Goya Sazon seasoning. Like someone turned that
Hmm.
into a pin, and I gifted that to my mom. My
Uh-huh.
dad loves Samurai Jack, so there's not a lot of Samurai Jack pins out there, but I found a
Right.
couple of them on Etsy, and
Right.
gifted that to him. I
Yeah,
love
my
that.
my sister-in-law, she loves Megara from Hercules.
Hmm.
And Disney only made one Megara pin, and it was both her and Hercules in the same pin, but there was just no Megara pin anywhere. And I found one on Etsy. So I bought it for her, and that's what she got for Christmas. And she was over the moon.
That's awesome. It's the little things in life. It can be
Hmm.
applied in so many different ways, but
Hmm.
that feeling of just seeing someone light up, because you and I both know that feeling very well. When you see someone else kind of like light up just from a pin, it's
Hmm.
such satisfaction.
And it's great too, like when I get a positive shop review and it's just the person just beyond excited about how much they love the pin that they received, that I've had a couple people buy a single pin, and then they loved it so much they came back and bought the rest of them, or they bought other things from my shop because they're just super happy with the pin, and they're just very very excited for it, that they're just like, I have to have the rest of them.
Hmm. That's
So that's
awesome.
always good for me.
Oh, absolutely. Love when customers come back and complete a set,
Right.
or just buy more in general. That's pretty
Hmm.
cool. And I think it's really cool that you're on Etsy. Yeah, the fees and stuff like that can be a little kind of sucky for lack of better words.
Yeah.
Um but the plus side is you have you're on this giant database of just like this
Right.
platform, and people are constantly searching for things. I think it's
Right.
right up there with like Google and YouTube in terms of like the amount of like the search volume happening on Etsy.
Right.
So you nailed it. You're like I think you selling your pins on Etsy is a great fit, and like the ideal platform for you. So
Yeah, I think that like I said, because it's such a it's a platform for creators like you and I, that's kind of where people like us go to look for those kind of things. So it kind of just turned into like this big circle, you know, like I'm looking for this, but I'm also selling this. And then, you know, people on Etsy see that you have an Etsy shop, and then they'll look at your stuff. And then before you know it, it's like every day, all day long, I'm just getting this item was favorited, this item was favorited, you know, and I'm just like, oh, this is great. I'm so happy that people are seeing my stuff.
Yes. I love seeing that favorite, but sometimes it goes off too much. I'm like, okay, can you buy
It's
the
like,
pin now?
Yeah, right. or when you look and it's like 10 people have this in their cart, and I'm just like, buy it.
Just one. Just
buy
one.
it. No, and you know what? This is for me, this whole thing is supposed to just be initially it was supposed to be just for fun. It was supposed to be a side project that I was just going to do in my spare time. And if I made a little money, fantastic. And it has come a lot farther than I ever expected that it would. And now that's where I've legitimized the business. I've made it an actual business.
Congrats.
I'm focused on trying to make product. I'm focused on coming up with new enamel pin designs. After I'm done with my Pokemon one, I'm going to do a World of Warcraft one, and just kind of go from there. And so every weekend, every Saturday morning, I wake up and I'm just like, what can I get on my Etsy today? And I just kind of brainstorm for a little bit, and then I just start dishing stuff out. And then by the end of the weekend, I'll throw up a few things on my Etsy and kind of go from there.
I like that. Always staying ahead. I think a big thing is just constantly like releasing stuff on a consistent basis. I think that's also kind of like a little key to growth for our types of businesses that aren't like dealing with lots of volume. You just have to consistently, you know, release 1 or 2 new pins every month, every bi-month, you know, whatever works for you. But
yeah, and that's kind of been like where I've at with the laser cutting stuff. Like I said before, you know, I have the control. Yeah. So I can control just how quickly I'm doing it because I have the means to produce them right here. So I can come up with the idea, make the file, you know, burn it up real quick, take a picture, throw it on my Etsy. Whereas the enamel pins, yeah, they take about a month to get fully rolled out. So about once a month, I'm doing the enamel pins, whereas I'm putting up between 2 and 5 products, hopefully. I mean, that's like my goal each week from the laser cut stuff. So I think this weekend I put up about 5 new products on my Etsy just this weekend.
Wow. That is incredible. That's awesome. That's what I'm talking about with that flexibility. You're able to cash in on any kind of like fads that may happen or memes or something like that if it relates.
When the Bernie Sanders thing happened where he was sitting in the chair at inauguration, I just was like, got to do it now, you know, and I got that out, burned it up on my Etsy that day. And I think I sold 6 or 7 of them.
Okay.
You know? Not a lot, but there's some people out there with my Bernie Sanders laser cut pins. So
it's a testament to just having that flexibility and just like quickly being able to be one of the first people to kind of fulfill the demand for that type of pin or that meme. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Wrapping up like this whole marketing portion of the episode, what do you think sets you apart from other pin shops, whether it's your marketing strategy or just kind of how you approach your products? What do you think sets yourself apart?
Looking, kind of lurking around and snooping on other people's laser cut stuff. Most people, from what I've seen, are doing more kind of artsy laser cut stuff with like Monstera leaves this here or like fancy coasters or things like that. And I specifically focus on nerdy stuff. Ninja Toitles, Pokemon, video games, pop culture references. You know, I just made a bunch of Labyrinth stuff. I don't know if have you seen the Labyrinth?
I have not seen it, but I know what you're talking about.
Well, that's your homework until, you know, this weekend. Watch the Labyrinth. That's a fantastic movie. And there's this little worm And it's the funniest thing because, like the main character, she sees this worm and he's like, hello. And she's like, did you say hello? And he's like, no, I said hello, but that's close enough. And I just made the pin, it's sitting right here actually, of the little worm. And he just says hello next to it. And, like that's just something that popped into my head because it's a joke between my sister and I. Mm-hmm. We will do that to each other all the time. And I just was like, why haven't I made a pin of that? So I just made a pin of it, and now it's up on my Etsy as of yesterday. And what's really interesting too is like this little worm pin that I just showed you. I looked around on Etsy, and there's tons of stickers. There's tons of coffee mugs and doormats and all these other things, but I didn't see any laser cut pins. There's enamel pins, there's stickers, there's keychains, there's all kinds of other product, but no laser cut. And so now there is. So if somebody wants a laser cut of the labyrinth worm, there he is. He's up on Etsy for you.
And that's awesome. So, and there's other like products of that worm out there. So it's not just like an anomaly. It's not just something that you think is cool. There's like, there's a little bit of a following behind it. So there is interest in there. So that's cool. So it sounds like you're just kind of sticking to your niche, your niches with the turtles and the Pokemon and all things nerdy and pop culture. But I think what's more important, and I think something that we both share, is that we make stuff that we love. This is stuff that we would wear ourselves, and there's passion behind it. Yes, we're in it and we formed a business to turn a profit, but there's still passion being driven, like driving these products.
Right. And that's like, I'm excited to think of new designs, to make designs, to get them on my Etsy, to share them, because I'm so excited about it. Like I played World of Warcraft for many, many, many years, and I made some pins because it, reminds me of the good times that I had in the game, making lots of friends and doing things together, that I want that same feeling to be shared with others. I actually just got an order today for some Warcraft keychains for a couple that's getting married, and they want to hang them on her bouquet because they play World of Warcraft together, and it's kind of like a running joke in her family that this is who we are and we love each other for it, and this is part of our lives. So they have these keychains so that they're going to use at the wedding.
That's really cool. That's really cool. That's got to feel pretty cool to know that you're making, you're just your little pins are part of someone's really special day.
Right. And so I told her I'd throw in a couple extra.
There you go.
Here's a wedding gift from your fellow WoW player, kind of a thing. So
that's really cool. Also, another possible avenue of business, custom wedding pins.
Yeah. I mean, I also do custom pins and keychains for businesses. So like if anyone, has a logo that they want to turn into a laser cut pin or keychain, feel free to contact me. I do it all the time, and I do have special promotions for first time orders. So don't hesitate to ask if you're interested.
There you go. Listeners, definitely take advantage of that if you are interested. Shay will guide you to the promised land.
And if your file's terrible, I'll tell you.
I love it. So we're running a bit long, so let's just cut straight into the awesome rapid fire. This is going to be a mix of pin fun questions, some pop culture stuff. We have revamped this portion of the podcast. So the first thing that come to mind, lay it on me.
Okay, go for it.
Soft enamel or hard enamel?
Soft.
Dyed enamel pins or glow-in-the-dark enamel pins?
Ooh. Both for different reasons, but glow-in-the-dark are pretty awesome.
Wooden pins or enamel pins?
Oh, you can't throw that one at me. I would have to say wooden pins.
That's what I was hoping you would say. When it comes to enamel pins, what is your favorite metal to make the pins on?
I've been doing mine on nickel.
They look great. I like that. Nickel Nickel's a nice choice.
It's got that nice shine to it that
Yes.
I don't think a lot of other pins have, because other pins are, I think they're painted black, or they put like a black coating over it. This
Yeah.
has like a metallic reflection aspect to it, which I really dig.
Yes. In some, in some lighting, it can look all black, but then you just kind of move it a little bit and you just
Right,
got like kind of like
exactly.
a little shine to it. And that really is just kind of looks a
Exactly.
little polished and it pops a little bit.
Right.
I'm on you with that. This is a fun one. Are you hashtag pin game strong or hashtag pin game proper?
Ooh,
Or both?
pin game strong.
Okay, the OG. I love it. Are you a hashtag pin addict or a hashtag pin collector?
Oh, geez. I would say I have recently become collector because my hashtag pin addict was getting a little too crazy.
We're all there. I don't have my big pin board behind me, but that thing is full and it's crazy. And yeah, I can relate to that. What is your favorite place to rock a pin?
Uh, well, I don't have a backpack much anymore since I'm out of college, but that's where I would rack them. I'd rock them on my backpack.
Nice. Classic. Simpsons or Bob's Burgers?
Oh, Bob's Burgers. I watch that every night.
Ooh, love it. Love it.
I'm on season 8, I think.
That show, you just can't get tired of it.
Nah, Louise is the funniest one. You know, what's funny is we just watched the episode where Gene was afraid to spend the night at his friend's house. And I was like, that was totally me as a kid. I was such a big scaredy cat as a kid, and it just made me laugh.
It can be very relatable at times. Are you Team Marvel or Team DC?
Oh, Marvel, for sure.
Nice. Comics or video games?
I enjoy both, but I never really got into comics. So I've always played video games ever since I was very young.
Are you more of a TV show person or a movie person?
Oof. Both, but definitely movies. We have a weekly movie night with my group of friends that because of COVID, we've been having to do over Zoom. But for years, we've been having our Friday night movie nights.
That's
and
awesome.
I
Very
love
cool.
movies. I love movies.
Love that. Love that. Really important to be able to spend time with your friends like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
really
my
cool.
getaway. That's what I look forward to the most each week is
Nice.
movie night with my friends.
I love that. That's so nice. That's very wholesome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
It's basically what I live my week for, is for Friday nights.
We all have our own reasons, and I love that. I love
Mm-hmm.
that. What is your favorite pizza topping?
Hawaiian.
Ooh, okay.
I
You might be
love
the first.
pineapple on pizza, and anybody who says otherwise, you're wrong.
Okay. Okay. All right. I see you, Shay. Are you into M&Ms or Skittles?
You know, I love Skittles, but when I eat a whole bag of them, my stomach does hurt a little bit. So I'm gonna lean towards those M&Ms.
Oh God, I've been there before. On both ends, Skittles
Yeah.
and M&Ms.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite Ninja Turtle?
Leonardo.
I like that. Wow. How about that? Got the blue
Mhm.
on for this interview. I like that. You know, you've been in business for a little over a year. What has been the highlight of running a pin business? What's been like the one accomplishment that you're most proud of?
I would say that opening that box of my Ninja Turtle pins was way up there at the top, because when I saw my idea come to fruition and I had tangible objects that I could hold in my hand, that speaks volumes. That I went from an idea to a physical product, and from there, people all over all over Etsy, I would just say, you know, and everybody who's purchased one can feel the same feelings that I have about those pins. It means a ton.
That's nice. I think I can understand that. I can get that. This is something awesome to be proud of.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to remake one of your pins, which would it be and why?
You know, the Michelangelo pin, the enamel pin, my initial idea was to have his actual chains, the chains on him, be actual chains so that they would dangle and swing. I think I still might try that for a future project. But the way in which that they had to do the holes, it seemed a little funny to me. So I ultimately did not do it. But I think later I might give it a try and see how it goes.
That would be really cool. That would be also really cool if you could figure out something similar to that with your laser machine. I don't know if that's possible.
You know what? You just put the idea in my head, and now I'm going to go for it.
Boom. Keep me updated. Would love to to snag one of those Mikey pins if it does actually work out. Last question. I love ending the podcast on this note because I think it's a very wholesome question. But what are the little things in life for you? I know you mentioned movie night, but is there anything else?
I would say your relationships. Like, my friends and I are very close, and you have to value your relationships. Take the time to enjoy them because you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. And if you don't live life the way that you want to with the people that you care about, it's going to be kind of a sad life. So just enjoy the time you have with the people that you care about, and go from there.
Wise words, my friend. Very wise words. Well spoken. Shea, you've made it to the end of Pin Pals. You've made it through the gauntlet. Congratulations. How do you feel?
Feels good. I'm excited.
Cool. I'm glad. So I'm going to give you the floor. Tell the listeners kind of what you have going on, where they can follow you. You have any shout outs? The floor is yours.
Let's see. So I have my Pokemon Gym Leader pin project going on at the moment. From there, I have a World of Warcraft project lined up. From that, just my laser cut stuff. If you have any ideas that you want to throw at me, you can find me on Instagram at Shea-zor's Lazor. You can email me at shea-zorslazor@gmail.com. And for anyone who's interested, I will probably later today or tomorrow throw up a discount code, PinPals15, for anyone who wants 15% off of my Etsy page. That's for any of you listening.
Boom. That's a good deal considering that these wooden pins, I believe, are slightly less expensive than your regular enamel pins.
Yeah.
So that's something to get excited for.
Yeah, so that's where you can find me. I'm also on Facebook. I don't really utilize that very often, so you probably won't get a response from me much there, but Instagram, I'm always very responsive. So if you have any questions, concerns, interests, shoot me a message.
Instagram's the place. Definitely go check out Shea at Shea-zor's Lasers. Love the name, by the way. I think it's very punny.
It is. So growing up, I was, a bunch of my friends always called me Shea-zor. They're just like, oh, Shea-zor's here. And it's a nickname that always kind of stuck throughout my whole life. And then I got a laser and I just was like, it makes too much sense. So I'm just going to go with it.
It was meant to be.
Right.
That's all it is. It was just meant to be. That's awesome. Shea, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I look forward to continuing our friendship through the pin game, sharing more pins. I know I got to get you some pins. We'll definitely talk about that. We'll be in touch very soon, and I wish you nothing but success and happiness through your pin journey and throughout life and all your Friday night movie nights. That's awesome, man. That's great.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for your time, Shea. We'll talk soon.
All right. See ya.
Peace. And there you have it. Another episode of Pin Pals in the books. What a good conversation with Shea. Felt very wholesome. Felt like it ended on a wholesome note, didn't you? Anyways, if you like what Shea had to say, what he's about, and his pins, feel free to give him a follow on his Instagram page. Better yet, check out his Etsy shop and, if you got some extra scratch, pick up some pins. All of his links will be in the show notes or the description of wherever you're listening to this. And hey, can I just say real quick, if you've enjoyed this episode or this podcast in general, there are a number of ways that you can support it. You can subscribe to the podcast, you can follow the podcast on all these different platforms, Spotify, YouTube, Anchor, the list goes on, and we're working on expanding that list. Apple Podcast listeners can rate the podcast 5 stars, and that helps a big amount. You can also leave reviews, which I love to read, and we'll get to one in a minute. You can share our content with your family and friends. I know that there's someone in your life who's looking to maybe get into a side hustle or who's into collecting things and might find an appreciation for pin conversation. Who knows? You can buy pins from the guests on the shows. All their links are always in the show notes. You can also buy pins from Warrior Pins if that's, what you want to do. You can also buy me a coffee, and this kind of works like a Patreon, but without the reoccurring memberships. You can just kind of buy me a coffee, aka leave a donation, leave like a little tip to the podcast, and all the funds will just kind of go back into the podcast. Well, not kind of, will actually go back into the podcast to help churn out better, more premium content for y'all. So, just listening to the podcast and making it to this point is huge already, and I just want to thank you. Actually, how about this? Take a screenshot if you're listening right now and post it on social, mainly Instagram, because that's pretty much where we're only active, and tag us in it. I want to know who makes it to the end of this episode and who's got the audacity to post about it, Anyways, let's get such a great listen. It was so interesting hearing about what goes into the pin making process. Also love hearing stories such as Nostalgia Vaults where, despite their disability, they're still thriving in their passion and doing what they enjoy. Definitely inspiring. Thank you, Anna Maria. I really appreciate the kind words. And if you leave a 5-star review, maybe one day I'll read it on the podcast. As always, I'm Eric from Warrior Pins. Thank you for listening, and remember, it's the little things in life. I'll see you next week. Peace.